You know, along with the good sites that are out there online, there is some that are just not so good. And today what I wanted to do was I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the misinformation that's flying around out there on YouTube. Many of these guys that got these channels, I don't know where they got their baking experience from. I think most of them are just little hobby cooks or something, and you know, they're teaching people, and unfortunately they're not teaching proper stuff. So with that in mind, I got a few examples. Mind you, there is a lot out there, but I picked these particular examples. We're going to go through them step by step, and hopefully I can clear all of this information out. Anyway, without any more delay, let's just get at it. Okay, this one here, I was sitting there relaxing. This channel popped up on my YouTube recommendations, how to get filling inside your bread dough. I had to watch it. I mean, you know, it's what I'm doing here. And so this guy, he mixes out a dough, he lets it rest for a little while, and then what he does is he kind of stretches it out with his hands and kind of forms it into a rectangle. And then he goes and he sprinkles on his peanuts and his raisins and all this on top of the dough. He presses them in, okay, which is the proper procedure. And then what the guy does is he kind of folds it into some type of a quick fold and then starts kneading it. And he kneads it, not just a little bit, but at least for a minute. Maybe even longer, and properly kneading. He's mixing this dough. Let me tell everybody out there, this is not how you add fillings into a dough. Now, if you look closely at this dough, you can see that already this dough is being beaten up by this kneading process. His gluten is starting to shred and tear. He's got peanuts in there, and he's mixing this. And if you look at this dough, it is not nice and smooth. It was originally, now it's really looking like it's being broken down through this process. As you come over here, and he's got it kind of in a shape where he's thinking about, you know, this was kind of getting to the end of his video. If you just look at it, it looks sticky, it looks tacky, it looks like it's been totally beaten up. So for everybody that's out there watching this video and sees videos like this, remember one key thing. You do not mix your dough with fillings inside it. You fold them into your dough, and I'm going to explain this. So if you're incorporating any type of fruit into your dough, you most likely will be using some type of a dehydrated fruit. As an example, like a raisin. Now, it's always important to hydrate your raisins in a little bit of water, 15 to 30 minutes maybe. Let them sit in there, let them soak, let them take up a little bit of that water. If the raisins are really, really dry, you might want to give it a little bit longer. The idea is to get your fruit to a point where it's rehydrated enough that it's kind of soft but not falling apart. You want them to be soft and plump up again, and that's how you want to do your fruits. If you don't do it like this, then what will happen is that the raisins will start to steal water from your dough. The dough will try to balance itself during the proofing stage, and those raisins will suck the water that you have in your dough, and ultimately at the end of the day you've got a very dry crumb, and it'll seem like it's staling very, very quickly. So always hydrate your fruits before you add them into your dough. Now, if you're using a mixer, You first of all always develop out your dough so it's nice. You got your gluten structure all formed. You've done your window pane test. You've got a nice extensible dough with good gluten development, and then you gently fold in your fillings into the dough. You do not mix them, you fold them in. If you're using a stand-up mixer, very low speed, just get all the ingredients in there and get them gently incorporated into the dough so that they're reasonably well dispersed within the dough itself. A minute, maybe two maximum if you've got a really slow speed, but definitely not much more than that, for sure. The proper way to do it is to take your dough, which as I mentioned is perfectly mixed out. You get a rolling pin and flatten it out, get it to about 1.5 centimeters or, you know, around a 1/2 inch thickness generally. Try to roll it into somewhat of a rectangle. Okay, now the width of the dough should be approximately the same size as the pan that you're looking to put it into. You can go a little bit on the longer side, but generally try to get your rectangle round about the same length of your pan. So you've got your dough sheeted out. Now what you do is you just evenly distribute your fillings kind of across the top and then give them a gentle press into the dough. You don't want things just kind of rolling around there loosely. Just a gentle pat to kind of set them inside the dough. Keep in mind also that you want to be sensitive to your hydration levels when you're using fillings. You're going to be expecting a lot from your dough to carry these ingredients. If your hydration is too high, you may find that some of these fillings will start to settle, and then you open up your bread at the end of the day and you end up seeing most of your fillings sitting around the lower portions of your bread. That's why I recommend going with a slightly stiffer dough when you're using fillings. I like 60%. Once again, it's kind of across the board, covers off most of the flours, and gives you the type of strength and resilience that you need in your dough to carry things like peanuts and the like. Now, don't go crazy on the fillings. 25% based on flour is a good starting point max. If you know your flour, you know that it's capable of taking a lot more water. You know that it's capable of carrying more fillings in it. By all means, go for it. But 25%, if you're making your raisin nut bread for the first time, is kind of a maximum point that you want to go at. Feel it out, and once again, always plan on building your formula from there. But that's what I got to say about that. Quite simply after that, what you do is you take one end of your dough and you start rolling it up. And put it into a nice tube style look. And then once you've rolled it up, place it in the pan, proof it, and of course bake it after that. Now, if you want a round-styled dough, and you're not putting it into a pan, you're going to bake it on what we'd call like a hearth-style bread, then simply take your tube that I'm showing here and flatten it out. Gently press it in so that it's about double its width. Okay? And as you can see what I'm trying to illustrate here. Then start rolling it from one end and roll it into kind of it's going to look closer like a round ball when you get there. But you'll have to do some final shaping and just smooth it out and round it out after this step. And that's it. That's basically how you do it. And be gentle. It's about gently handling your dough through this. Don't tear up the beautiful gluten structure that you've spent time in mixing to develop. Okay, in this section here, I had to talk a little bit about this guy. Well, I've seen a couple of videos about this. And these guys ask the question, can you over knead or over mix your dough in a stand mixer or on a table? And the one guy on the table, he's hand kneading and hand kneading and hand kneading, and it goes on. And I think he hand kneads for about an hour or something like this. And the guy with the stand mixer, I think he mixed his dough literally for 40 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. I can't remember exactly. But one thing that they didn't mention in there is they didn't mention the type of dough that they're making. Now, I could tell by the one guy was doing sourdough. So I knew automatically there was no yeast in it, very high hydration. And he beat that dough up for a really long period of time. And what the test showed me is it showed me that white flour will take a lot of beating, especially if it's a high hydration dough. But the guy who was kneading the product on the table, he also had no to very little yeast in his dough. I mean, I could tell by just looking at it. You start kneading or mixing for that amount of time, and you're definitely going to start seeing some yeast activity happening in it, and your dough will start to age. So every baker in the world, except these guys here, know that yes, you can over knead. And even white doughs you can over knead. And there is tech bulletins out there on top of it about over mixing dough and the effects of it. Can you still make a loaf of bread on a high hydration, straight white dough with nothing in it? You'd be surprised. Flour's pretty forgiving. But you will definitely have lower volume. You'll have some issues with it. It's common knowledge. Any dough can be overmixed. The other thing that they don't talk to you too much about as they're doing these demonstrations is the issues with temperature. The longer you mix, the more your dough temperature heats up. And this is just friction, common, basic physics, right? So, and then you start getting into having these really, really warm doughs. Now, these guys here are in their little test kitchens. I imagine it's room temperature. They're picking up heat for sure. But you imagine doing this on a hot day in your kitchen? It would turn into an aged piece of crap very, very quickly. And on top of that, you're doing a no-time dough as an example, and you got like a reasonably high amount of yeast in it, and you over mix for a long period of time because your dough seems to be not developing. And I have a friend who has an old mixer. He has this issue all the time. His mixer's old, his dough hook isn't really that efficient. And he has to take 25 minutes sometimes to mix his dough. Even longer, he's told me. And I've told him the importance of developing the gluten. And so now his mix times are 25 minutes, 30 minutes. His problem is not getting the dough developed. His problem now is temperature. If you are further processing your dough and you've got it hot and you've got yeast in it, oh my God, it starts to get puffy. Right before your eyes. It's difficult to shape and mold. It's aging. It's just, you can see the aging process in the dough. So very important to stick with set mix time standards. Are pretty darn close, and make sure that your dough temperatures are at optimum. That is the critical part of the whole thing. Now, on top of this, another thing that they don't say is they don't say that if you're using say you're using whole wheat flour, okay, it's very coarse. Whole wheat, if you mix it for too long, will start actually destroying the gluten that you've taken the time to form, and it'll start tearing it and shredding it. And any grains will do the same thing. Coarse grains will do that, and that's mostly the reason why These types of doughs have a lower mix time than standard white doughs. Whole wheat doughs, doughs with a lot of grains in them, always are lower in mix time than white doughs. So if these guys would have talked about that and explained that yes, you can overmix, but in this example, what we're doing is we're just trying to take a look and see if we can mix the heck out of white flour and water, basically. And will it still make a loaf of bread? Well, I kind of see what they're saying. But I don't really understand the reason why they did this exercise. Nobody in their right mind wants to mix for 30 minutes. It's really is just a BS test, and make sure that you know you can overmix. Okay, this guy's videos drive me crazy, and I could show you an example of why. I mean, if you look at these photos that we have down here, first of all, this guy's making videos like this, okay? He's showing people this stuff, teaching them how to bake. Let's just look at the dough in the pan over there on that side. It looks like it's going to be a nightmare. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to actually see that. And so he puts it in, and he's talking all, doing his big spiel and everything like this. And then he bakes it off and puts it on the table, and it looks exactly like it should based on what he had there before he put it in the oven. In other words, it's a garbage in, garbage out type situation. Well, he slides that stuff quickly over to the other side, but he can't help but tell you, wow, even though this dough didn't look as good as what I was hoping, it sure tastes good and stuff. Well, whatever. I mean, you bake a loaf of bread, it should taste like a loaf of bread, but his comments about if you got a loaf like this in a restaurant, you'd be really happy about it. I don't think so. I would wonder who the heck's doing the baking back in the kitchen, and that's exactly what I think of this guy's example here. By the way, this guy I've seen on his channel, 1.3 million views on some of his videos. This guy's teaching people how to bake. Unreal. I give this whole channel and this whole guy just the big moo. Now, this guy here, I'm not going to beat him up too much, but I did want to show you this. What I try to do in my baking videos and as I try to educate people on baking is about putting the right amount of dough in the proper size pan so that you get a nice, uniform, beautiful looking product at the end of the day. Now, this guy here makes a video and calls it his best homemade bread. Now, I'm not going to beat this up too much. If this is the characteristics that you're actually looking for, then, fair enough. But this is a big wad of dough thrown into an undersized pan, overproofed, and, as you take a look over here, you can see that the loaf is hanging over the edge of the pan. For me, that's not visually what I would want people to consider to be a perfect loaf of bread. You try to make a sandwich and you got these wings in your sandwich where you can put more filling up here than you can down here in this part. No. This is what I'm talking about as a proper, beautiful uniform. However, just to be fair, if this old country style kind of look is what you're after, well, to be honest with you, I don't think you need YouTube to teach you how to do this. I think you just find a dough recipe, throw in a huge amount of dough in a pan and let it overproof and bake it off, and you got this. You don't need to be taught how to do this. So anyway, that's all I got to say about that one. And in conclusion, Number one, if you're adding fillings, remember just to gently fold them into your dough. Don't mix them. And you never on high speed. Follow the format that I've used for incorporating them in if you're doing them on a table. You don't need to mix them into your dough and then knead for any long periods of time, especially when you're using nuts or fruit. Just remember that. With regard to the second tip that I got, all dough types can be overmixed. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't overmix your dough. Everybody knows this. It's common knowledge out there. It's just straight and utter BS. So be aware of that. And this brings me to number 3. There's a lot of people out there that are teaching baking that really don't have a clue. And, you know, they've learned from a couple of cookbooks and they run around their kitchen and they talk really quick and, you know, start mumbling a bunch of technical jargon that they picked up from somewhere. Be careful of these guys. You can usually spot them just by looking at the products that they're producing at the end of the day. And just because they're making a loaf of bread doesn't mean that it's actually a really good loaf of bread. So just be aware and, you know, keep your eyes peeled on them. And finally, when you're baking a product, remember this is personal. Bake what you want to bake. If you want a big, huge loaf, rustic styled, homemade looking bread, that's what turns you on, go for it. Baking should be fun, personal, and whatever turns your crank at the end of the day with respect to the type of finished product and the characteristics that you've got, that's the beauty of baking in your kitchen and home baking. So. And finally, you know, there's some people that are doing some really, really good stuff out there too. And I found this video by a lady by the name of Bincy Chris. Absolutely fantastic. I loved everything about it. Her presentation was spot on. The quality of the information she gave you, the quantity of the information and the important details was great. The formula's sound. Her process and techniques are properly explained. And the final product is absolutely beautiful. So, you know, with the bad comes many, many good things out there, and I would definitely recommend that you check out Bincy Chris. I loved her video. I don't know the lady. This is no endorsement or anything, but I'm just telling you from what I saw, her product was fantastic. So give it a check out. Thank you for watching the video. I hope this video cleared up a few things for you. I'm going to be banging out a video at least once every week covering a big range of topics. So be sure to check it out and visit the channel. And if you like what you see, please give me a like and a subscribe. It really helps apparently on this YouTube thing. So anyway, thank you. We'll see you next time on No BS Baking.